Hey everybody! Thanks for joining the first official episode of the Ask Feathr show. My name is Abhay, Khurana. I'm the CMO here at Feathr, and this is the show where we all get together to discuss our marketing challenges, digital marketing challenges, attendee acquisition, member recruitment, ongoing education promotion, just anything and everything in the world of association marketing and event marketing. I'm super happy to launch this show. This has been something that's been a long time coming. We've had customers and people in our audience asking us for a while to just have kind of an open forum to talk about the challenges that they're having in their day-to-day jobs. And so this show is one of the ways that we're hoping to provide that for everybody. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody who sent in questions ahead of time so that we've got a nice set of questions to get to right here off the bat. And also encourage everybody who's here with us live to ask their questions via Zoom or via the YouTube chat if you're on the YouTube live. We'll see those questions come in either place, and then James here, who's helping us run the live stream, will read them off to me or send them to me so that I can read them through and get to those questions here on the stream. Cool. I want to let everybody know that Ariana, who's the director of our implementation team, wasn't able to join today, unfortunately. She's going to join a future episode, but I'm going to do my best to hold the fort and get to everybody's questions and answers. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. So we got a question here from Christine via email prior to the stream today. And Christine is wondering about best practices for targeting people based upon like geographic criteria, and this is from an advertising perspective. So the question, kind of broad strokes, is like, what are best practices to advertising to people in certain geos, in certain geographical areas? And I'll just start off by saying that geographical ad targeting is a very useful strategy both for like building awareness, so like top of funnel marketing, that is advertising to new people who aren't in your audience yet, but also for retargeting and kind of engaging people who are already in your audience and trying to drive them to conversion, so kind of bottom of funnel marketing. So from a top of funnel standpoint, there's a couple of ways that you can target people based upon geographics to get people engaged with your brands, engaged with your educational programs, engaged with your event, engaged with the organization holistically. And a couple of the best ones are geofencing. So geofencing, for those who aren't familiar, is a way to target a physical location, and this is not even city specific. You can get way more nuanced than that. So you can not only target a city, you can target a city block, maybe a complex with a lot of employers and companies in that area. You can target a specific building or a specific event venue. And that precision of targeting with geofencing is super powerful because, like, for example, one of the things you can do, and a lot of our customers do who use our geofencing tool, is they will target competitive events on the dates that those events are happening, thereby getting their ads and their brand in front of people who are in market. And we know that they're in market because they're attending competitive events. So say you're a food expo or something like that, and obviously there's dozens of food expos happening every year. One layer of an awareness building campaign that you can run is just setting up geofencing campaigns to target all of your competitive or adjacent food expos that are happening throughout the year. You just set the date range and you set the target location for when you know those events are happening. And then when there's attendees at these venues attending, again, your competitive or adjacent food expos, they'll be seeing your ads on their mobile devices as they're walking around. It's kind of complex to get into the technical details. Broadly speaking, it's based upon Bluetooth, GPS data, and like Wi-Fi network data that helps geofencing campaigns know when people are moving in and out of these physical locations that you're targeting, but it's really precise, and it's a really powerful way to build awareness. So that's one kind of like geographical based advertising campaign that really, really works well, and that's really great for boosting awareness. Another one is on retargeting campaigns. So in most retargeting tools, including Feathr's retargeting tool, you can run a retargeting campaign that starts with a certain audience, but then you add a geographical filter to. So a good example is, say you're retargeting everybody who's been to your events website, or maybe to the membership section of your website, or maybe just even your homepage. You want to retarget your entire website audience. But say what you want to promote in that retargeting campaign is some kind of like local luncheon or something like that, or a regional meeting or a meetup for your members. So in that case, maybe you have web traffic from the entire United States, but your luncheon is happening, in DC, or it's happening in Sacramento, or it's happening in Austin, Texas, or that kind of thing. So in that case, you wouldn't want to target all of your website traffic, or that wouldn't be ideal, because you'd be kind of wasting impressions on people who are in, Washington State, and they wouldn't really be able to make your Austin, Texas luncheon, right? That's not something they're gonna travel for. So in a case like that, what you would do is launch a retargeting campaign targeting your entire website traffic, and then filtered by people who are in certain cities, or maybe an entire state, depending on how precise you want to get with your targeting. And that's a really powerful way to make your retargeting campaigns more effective. If the thing that you're promoting via your retargeting campaign is regional in nature, then you want to filter your retargeting audience in a corresponding way. So those are a couple of best practices for using geographical targeting. One, geofencing for boosting awareness, getting in front of new people, and then one, geofiltering on retargeting campaigns to retarget people with that filter of the geographical location in cases where that makes sense. So I hope that's helpful, Christine. Let me know if you're here on the stream and you have a follow-up question, let me know and we'll get to it. Cool. So there's a bunch of good questions coming in here. All right. Here's a question from Tom. Thanks for the question, Tom. How would you stop your competitors from using a geofence at your event? Short answer is that you wouldn't. What you would do is geofence your own event. So that people who are at your event, who might be, and your event might be being targeted by geofencing campaigns from your competitors, they would see your ads instead of your competitors. And how you can do that is just kind of like inflate your bid on your geofencing campaign, so that it's very unlikely that your competitors are trying to outbid or will outbid that number. And even if you have like a high bid on a geofencing campaign, call it like a $10 or a $15 CPM, which is expensive for a programmatic campaign, these audiences are not that big, right? Even for a big event, an audience is, 40,000 people, 50,000 people that are in an event venue. So even if you're paying a high CPM, your total cost on a geofence campaign is still going to be low. So that's how you get around it, is you geofence your own event with a geofencing campaign. And you can use that in some interesting ways. You can drive people to, an after hours cocktail party or some kind of special event or that kind of thing. So you can use it and get actual marketing value out of it, on top of just using it as a way to prevent your competitors from targeting your attendees. That's a great question. Here, this is, I think, a little bit more of a philosophical question. But this is a question from Rajiv, I believe. Marketing the function has been around since the beginning of time. Quantifying the marketing department's efforts, results, contributions, etc. is much newer and less developed, which is true. And what are your thoughts on the priority owed to each of these? Yeah, Rajiv, I mean, that's a fantastic question. That's something that I think about as a marketer too. I think it's important, and this is how I've handled it, I think it's important to be intentional about kind of categorizing your marketing efforts into marketing efforts that are meant to drive short-term metrics. Maybe that's registrations, maybe that's leads for your sales team, maybe that's membership, maybe that's website traffic, something a little bit more top of funnel, maybe that's visits to your membership page, maybe that's new members, maybe that's retained members. So there's all kinds of like quantifiable goals that marketing is owning more and more of, especially recently. And I think those are important. And now, it's not that marketing never did work that was quantifiable in nature. It's that marketing did work that was hard to quantify. or would run campaigns through channels that were hard to quantify. You think about radio advertising, TV advertising, print advertising, direct mail. These things are a little bit hard to quantify in their impact. So I think what's happened is that the technology that marketers are using and the channels that they're using have just become more inherently measurable. And so I think that marketers, if we're focusing on our job well and executing well, we're kind of like getting, in some cases, we're just getting the validation that we have deserved for a while, which is now we're able to show the impact of our work through campaigns, through digital channels that are more inherently measurable. Especially now when transactions are taking place online and you're not faxing in a registration form to become a member for an association, to register for an event. All these transactions are taking place online. And also like the media and the marketing channels have moved online. It's just more inherently trackable. So I think, again, to some degree, things becoming trackable and measurable in marketing is just giving us validation kind of for free, because now all of our work is more trackable. That being said, I think there is a danger to becoming too metrics focused as a marketer and becoming like only focused on short-term impact and short-term results. And sometimes that's important, right? It's your last 6 weeks of a push for an event that you're promoting or for like a yearly membership drive. And in that case, you're focused on short-term metrics, and that's completely appropriate. That being said, if you don't also have like a bucket of your time and your money and your overall budget that you're dedicating to what I would call like longer-term brand building marketing, you can kind of hamstring yourself. So like say you figure out how to advertise, say on like retargeting, Facebook, LinkedIn, and like you figure out the audience targeting and the bids and the creatives that work on those channels, but that's where you invest 100% of your time and your budget. But something happens. There's a change in the algorithm. There's a change in how the pricing works that makes all of your campaigns more expensive on those channels. If that's all you have, then you're vulnerable in that situation. And that's true for any kind of like short-term performance-based marketing channel. So kind of like my rule of thumb and what I kind of suggest is that you have dedicated time, resources, and budget that's for long-term marketing, brand building marketing, that is not measured according to short-term impact. Like this show, kind of a meta example, is a good example of that. Like we're not running this show because we think it's going to drive, X dollars in sales revenue for us in the next 14 days. And if that's how we were measuring it, we'd kill the show immediately. But this show is something that is a contribution to the community. It delivers value to our audience. It gives us like a deeper level of engagement with people who are already aware about us. And we know that that's going to have a long-term payout. That is, maybe in a long term, significantly better than any of our short-term marketing channels, like our Facebook ads or our LinkedIn ads or these kinds of things. And so I think it's important to invest in both. Kind of a long-winded answer, but I'll say that measurable marketing is important, short-term marketing is important, performance marketing is important. At the same time, we have to be intentional about investing in long-term marketing too, that has a longer term but potentially a very high return payout on those efforts. So I think that stuff like community building, podcasts are a good example of that. Just content resources are a good example of that, although content can be used in both ways, which makes content a really nice thing. You can use it for brand building, you can use it for lead gen and kind of short-term registrations also. So that's my answer there. I hope that's helpful. Cool. So here's a question from Mike. Is retargeting going to be possible now that Chrome will not be allowing third-party cookies? Short answer is yes. I think the underlying technology that enables retargeting will have to evolve to accommodate that in some ways. But retargeting in programmatic advertising is not going anywhere. There are other ways, even with these kinds of restrictions coming out from Chrome and maybe other browsers in the future, there are other ways to enable the same function of retargeting, and the advertising industry is in process for making those evolutions so that retargeting is still a possibility. And a lot of this stuff is already figured out, to be honest. And so as that transition happens, the leading retargeting vendors, and Feathr is committed to this too, and the partners that we work with are all on the cutting edge of this kind of stuff, will be evolving the underlying technology to enable retargeting. Cool. Here's another question. We target public security executives. When they are on our site, that is their frame of mind. Yeah, when they're on your site, they're thinking about their profession. But that same person might be in dad mode later when they're checking weather.com, right? To see if the kid's soccer game is going to happen. Yeah, so in other words, they're in a different frame of mind at that point. Do you see different messages used for this same person? Yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious what thoughts you have about different messages for that same person. I'd be curious maybe what you're thinking about. But that is certainly a true thing, and that's also true for like when somebody's on Facebook, right? You can run Facebook retargeting campaigns, and we actually have a question about that coming up in a minute. Facebook retargeting campaigns, somebody comes to your site, they're in work mode. Somebody goes to Facebook, they're in social mode, they're in check out what their friends are doing mode. But they're seeing your professional, like business-focused ads. Is there a mismatch basically between the mode that person is in, and potentially the messaging and the creative and the offer that you're showing them in your ad campaign? I think that's a really fair point. I think what that means is that the format of the ad should be contextual to the frame of mind that people are in when they're seeing that ad. So if you're running a Facebook retargeting campaign, I think how this would apply is you would be thinking about creating your ad creative would need to respect the frame of mind that person is likely to be on Facebook. So I think what that means kind of in practical terms is that Facebook is a very visual heavy platform. If you're running Instagram retargeting, it's even more visually heavy. So your ads in that case should respect that, and I think be more visually interesting. Maybe that's using photography, maybe that's using illustrations, maybe that's using video, because again, video is very performant on social channels. And so instead of just doing an image-based ad, or what I mean is like a plain ad with maybe like your colors in the background and your logo and some text, which might be the way to go for like general display retargeting. On Facebook, you want to do something that's more contextual to the type of content that performs on that platform. You might also do something that's a little bit more casual and entertaining, right? So say for like a Facebook retargeting campaign, just to stick with that example, you might do something that's a video of you as the marketing person at your organization that's promoting whatever campaign, or that's trying to engage people with some kind of specific asset that you're promoting. You might do like a candid, selfie video with your phone camera, and you might think that that's going to be perceived as like low quality or unprofessional or something like that, but you'd be surprised at how well kind of candid, organic feeling content performs on these channels, because that's what people are used to consuming on these channels, and that's what they like. So I think that retargeting people who are visiting your site when they're in a business or a professional frame of mind on non-professional focused channels, which you'll get some of with general retargeting depending on the site that they're on, and which you'll get like with Facebook retargeting, Instagram retargeting, for example. I don't think that it all rules out the value of that kind of retargeting just because the frame of mind is different in those places, because after all, somebody who's in dad or friend mode on Facebook is also a professional. And so that side of them is still accessible. It just might be kind of in the background at that point. I think what that should affect is the type of creative that you use. It should be more contextual to the platform and kind of respect what the types of people are hoping to see on those platforms. So I hope that's helpful. Cool. Here's a question from Damaris. Hey, Damaris. The information on geographical targeting was helpful. Do you have any suggestions for retargeting campaigns as a follow-up for resulting conversions? Yeah, so I think the question here is, so you do an awareness building like geofencing campaign, for example. You get a certain number of clicks and a certain number of site visitors. What do you do as a follow-up to that to drive people through to conversion? I think this is where kind of thinking about your marketing and your advertising as a funnel really helps. And this is very contextual to your organization and to how people buy what you're selling, whether that's in an event ticket or a membership, whatever the case might be. But broadly speaking, I think a framework that I've used is from an awareness standpoint. So if you're doing a geofencing campaign where you're trying to build new awareness, what you're doing is high level. You're not offering, your geofencing campaign is not saying, come register for our event, here's a $25 coupon. That's not going to hit home with people who don't know about you or your event or who have like a vague level of familiarity. What you're trying to do is build value, show kind of trustworthiness and authority, and communicate the benefits of engaging with your organization or whatever the offer is. So for awareness-focused campaigns, you're focused on high-level value prop benefits of engaging with us. After people have kind of become aware, so say they click on a geofencing campaign, you're reinforcing that messaging, but trying to get them into basically like a consideration funnel for one of the offers that you are making to that individual. So maybe a geofencing campaign is like, come learn about, ABC Association, the leading association for XYZ. And you get clicks on that. So at that point, people have general interest, they have vague interest. What I would suggest as a follow-up, like retargeting campaign to people who have engaged with that geofencing campaign, is to start to get them interested in one specific thing that you offer. Maybe it's an event that's coming up, maybe it's a webinar that you have coming up, maybe it's your overall membership program, etc. Get them starting to consider one offer that you have. So maybe what you retarget them with is like a testimonial ad from one of your members who's raving about the benefits of your membership, and then the CTA on that ad is to learn about membership at ABC Association. And so then in that case, what you're driving people to is you're taking them from general interest to specific interest. Now they're interested, they're learning about a specific offering that you have. And then what I suggest is retargeting again the people who visit that membership section of your website in this example with a specific offer that drives some urgency and drives some conversion. So maybe there's a discount that you're offering for your membership that is only available for a limited time. Maybe there's some like throw-in perks that you're offering for new members that join in a certain time. And so in that case, your ad would look more like, hey, join before February 15th and get a free ticket to our annual meeting, or whatever kind of promotion that you're offering. And so in that case, in that third set of ads, you would be driving the conversion. That's kind of, I think, a general framework that you could explore and think about and find the version of that that makes sense for you. Cool, this is a question from Lynn. Have you had any success and or experience in any text marketing campaigns, whether for recruitment or retention, with the understanding that it may have to be an opt-in option only? So Lynn, as far as I know, I don't have any individual experience with text marketing campaigns, so that's the honest answer at the get-go. But what I know about it is that it is much more strict opt-in only. And on the flip side, for those who opt in, engagement rates are like email marketing in 1999 or 1998. So for anybody who was around for that, I was using the internet at that time. I was not doing digital marketing at that time, so I only know this by secondhand. But apparently, email open rates, mid-90s, late 90s, were crazy. And it kind of makes sense. Like, email was new and interesting then. Like, you were opening every email. Now today, of course, it's a super saturated channel, so if you get like a 30% open rate, you're doing amazing. But typically, email marketing had like 80, 90% open rates when it was a new thing. So text marketing is kind of just hitting the scene in a general sense. Obviously, texting has been around forever, but text as an audience engagement and marketing channel is just catching on. So open rates and engagement rates are still kind of crazy high like that. So I wouldn't expect your text opt-in list to be that big, right? I don't think you would have a list size anywhere near the size of like your general marketing email list, but for those who do opt in, your engagement rates are going to be very, very good. Some general best practices, again, this isn't from specific experience around associations using text for marketing, but some general recommendations is to play on its exclusivity. It's going to be a smaller audience than your overall, say, email audience or your overall membership database. But you can, like, maybe, for example, send exclusive offers there or publish exclusive content or like give some kind of access. This is something that I've seen work well in like the broader marketing world, is that people who are on your text list have the ability to communicate with people maybe from your organization that they would like to communicate with that they otherwise don't really have an option. So maybe, you know, people on your text message list are able to reply to text messages that will get sent to certain people on staff at your organization that people on that list would like to communicate with. And so it can be like an access play too. Not that you respond to every text, but like there's that option for like one-to-one engagement with people on your staff. Cool. Got a couple other ones. These are some questions from Joy here. Got these via email too. Does marketing only start with the person visiting our site? That's also a good kind of philosophical question. I'd say no, although in the world of digital marketing, which is the world that we live in today, marketing has gone digital. It's not going digital, it has gone digital. That first site visit is a huge milestone. That enables so much. You know, before somebody's visited your site, you don't have any opportunity to cookie them and retarget them. You don't have any opportunity to drive them to some kind of form conversion, which then lets you email to them. There's so much that you cannot do until somebody has visited your site. So I wouldn't say marketing begins strictly at that point, but a lot of marketing is opened up by somebody visiting your website. I think marketing starts before that. There's marketing that is for getting people to your site for the first time, if you're thinking about digital marketing more strictly, like geofencing campaigns. You know, in that case, your marketing is starting with an ad campaign that's targeting people in those physical locations like we talked about. Or maybe you're doing LinkedIn targeting, and you're targeting professionals in a certain industry if you're like a B2B association or a trade association that you're focused on a specific industry. If you're doing a LinkedIn campaign and you're targeting, you know, food manufacturers, and not only food manufacturers, but like quality assurance professionals at food manufacturing companies, in that case, your marketing is beginning with those ad impressions on LinkedIn. And so it doesn't strictly start at the site visit, although the site visit is a key milestone. It often starts before that. Here's a good question about paid search or organic search. How do you generate or identify Google AdWords or searches that would generate a campaign for you? I'm curious from the audience if anybody is big on SEO or paid search. I know that for some organizations it especially makes a lot of sense, and for others it's sometimes a little more difficult to pull off. But the short answer is to use the Google Keyword Planner tool. There are other keyword research tools. I have a little bit of background in SEO, did it for a while, and the best tool that I found was the Keyword Planner. I mean, there are some other good ones too, but the Keyword Planner is a great starting point. Now, how do you start with the Keyword Planner? How do you know what to research with the Google Keyword Planner? I would suggest starting with kind of a brainstorm with you and your team. So you kind of know broadly like the categories of searches or of the ways that people would be looking for your offerings, right? So again, to go back to the example of like a food expo, if you run a food expo and you want to use Google, whether that's again organic or paid search, to promote that food expo is a good starting point. But maybe there's some other things that are interesting options. Maybe there's education for food professionals, right? Maybe that's another kind of broad category who searchers of that category would kind of like represent people who are in market for you. Or maybe there's food event, which is kind of like a variation on food expo. But I would come up with a starting list of like categories of searches just with your own internal knowledge. Maybe get a few people in a room together, maybe somebody from sales, somebody from marketing, maybe an executive director, maybe somebody from your board if you can pull that off. To start to brainstorm a starting list of like keyword themes or like search themes that people might be, that would indicate people being in market for you or what you're trying to offer. And then go to the keyword planner and use those as the seed keywords for the keyword planner tool. And if you just, Google keyword planner, it'll come up, of course, and you can click in and try it. But what Google will then do is suggest variations of that term that it is recommending and give you data about how many monthly searches those other terms are getting. So say you start with food expo, it would give you like a bunch of variations of that. It would give you food expo and it would tell you how many people search for that each month, which is like an indication about how valuable it would be to target that term or to rank for that term in organic. But it would also give you other variations. So it would give you maybe like gluten-free food expo or pizza expo or vegan food expo or food events, food networking opportunity. It'll give you many variations of the keywords, some of which, or many of which, will not have been on your original list and you would not have thought about initially. And then from there, like rough rule of thumb is to look at search volume. Typically you want to go after keywords that have a higher search volume, but that's not always the case. Sometimes there are keywords that have low search volume, but the people searching those things are like uber qualified for what you're offering, right? So like maybe Food Expo Sacramento only has like 1,000 searches per month compared to Food Expo, which has 100,000 per month. And of course, again, I'm making all this up. But it actually might be more valuable for you to rank for Food Expo Sacramento, even though it has less search volume than Food Expo, if your expo is in Sacramento. Because the searchers of those, like those 1,000 searchers, are much more qualified than people who are just searching Food Expo. So you can kind of pick your keywords according to volume and like your perceived relevance of the people searching for that thing. And then kind of difficulty. And so Google will give you that data too, which kind of estimates how difficult it would be to rank for and or like rise above the noise in paid search for those keywords. And if you find something that's high search volume, also very highly qualified in terms of the people who are searching for that thing, and low competition, that's like the holy grail of search marketing. You know, there's not always many great options like that because search is also like a very saturated marketing channel, but that's what you're looking for, or something as close to that as possible. So here's another question. This one is from George. How would you approach our short-term challenge? Actually, this is still from Joy. Sorry about that. Joy asked, how would you approach our short-term challenge? We want registrants for our end of April conference, meaning that's short-term, and we want ads for people who have never visited our website before. So the candid answer to this is it is difficult to take people through the entire marketing advertising funnel, like all the way from having never heard about your event to registered for your event in the timeline that we now have in front of us, which is basically a couple of months. That's a tall task. I mean, ideally, you're starting 6-7 months out. Of course, that's not the case right now. But that's the ideal situation. You're doing kind of marketing to new audiences 6 to 7 months before the event takes place, or like as soon as registration opens. Getting people to the site, retargeting them and nurturing them over multiple touch points to the point where they have enough time to build up enough interest and become warm enough with your brand that they convert. That being said, there are ways to try to hit kind of short-term new audience goals. And I think that they would be, broadly speaking, they would not be programmatic based. Although the one exception to that we have seen work sometimes is using email mapping. So email mapping is a way to take a list of emails, turn those emails into cookies, which are basically people that you can target with ads across the web as if they had visited your site and were now being retargeted by you. But your starting point is just a list of email addresses. And this is going to be highly dependent on what email data or what lists you have available to you. But if you can build like a really highly qualified email list that is like your absolutely ideal persona, from absolutely ideal companies, for example, that are in the ideal locations for your event, you can make that work on a short timeline. So like Food Expo Sacramento, we'll stick with it. If that food expo is like a food quality expo and it's in Sacramento, and you have a list of, say 3,000 professionals in the food space who are of ideal personas for you. They're from food manufacturing companies, they're from big restaurant companies, or whatever your kind of target account criteria are, and they have titles of like that contain food quality or quality assurance or these kinds of things, then that's a super highly qualified list. And if you can email map that and then show those people ads across the web with like a really compelling short-term offer, the creative here is also important. Maybe it's free registration for first-time attendees in the area or something. So it's an offer that's both really compelling and that speaks to them in terms of who they are and what you know about them. Those kinds of campaigns can work. It's difficult to pull off. You have to test it. I'd say not to have super high expectations, but those kinds of ad campaigns can work. The other things that can work, if you can pull it off, are basically attendee invites or exhibitor sponsor partner invite programs, because those invitations are coming from trusted sources. So if you can get your exhibitors to promote your event to their audience in this last couple months of run-up and give them collateral, give them a customized landing page, give them an email invite that they can just pick up and send to their audience to invite their audience to come see them at your events, to come register and see them at your event, for example. Same deal for big sponsors or big speakers that you have coming. And also same thing for attendees. If you can give attendees, after they register, some kind of incentive or personalized link that they can use, or personalized coupon code if you want to keep it really simple, to share with their own professional network to get other people to come, those kinds of campaigns can juice short-term performance and short-term results. You have to give those people an incentive too, typically. Maybe it's some kind of kickback on the registration cost. Maybe it's some kind of VIP access to some kind of VIP event or VIP content if they get a certain number of people to come and register. But that's a type of campaign, that's a category of campaign that can work pretty well even on a relatively short timeline of 2 to 3 months, what we have right now between now and April, for juicing registration numbers and getting more and more people to come. Cool. Let's see. We got some others? Yeah. Branding can start your marketing, from Tom. Absolutely. Cool. Here's a question from Gerald. General retargeting question. Any information about effective frequency for retargeting versus general display. Assume you don't need to show the ads as often, so lower total spend since it's relevant ads. So I think the question is basically like, should your general display ads, which are to basically like non-retargeting audiences, so new audiences, should those have a higher frequency than retargeting campaigns? Because people have less brand affinity, you're having to do more work to get them to recognize you. Broadly speaking, that's a true statement. Broadly speaking, that's the rule of thumb. So like, again, on a geofencing campaign or a lookalike campaign, which is something we haven't really talked about, but on a campaign that's targeting new people that haven't heard about you before, typically you want your frequency cap to be higher. That's a rule of thumb. Everything is contextual and you have to test it to see what actually performs. But as a rule of thumb, starting point, that's about right. I would say though, on retargeting, it depends on the type of retargeting campaign. If the retargeting campaign that you're running is like a last chance offer for registration, and maybe your early bird tier is closing in 3 days, right? In that case, you would want that campaign to have a pretty high frequency cap. If you're doing general retargeting, it's just everybody who's visited your site and you're doing kind of general like brand retargeting to get them back to your site in some way, okay. A lower kind of like medium frequency cap, maybe that's 8 to 10 impressions every 24 hours, up to maybe 15, 20 impressions in a 24-hour period, which is getting up there, but keep in mind that an impression is your ad loading on a site, and that is, if somebody scrolls really quickly and goes by it, that's considered an impression. That's considered, one of that frequency cap. So it's not people saw the ad, they consumed it 20 times in a day. It's just the number of times that it's being served, basically. So that's like a general kind of like moderate pace, maybe 10 to 30 impressions in a day. But if you're doing a last chance retargeting campaign for, like, again, an early bird registration tier, and there's urgency around it, and it's closing in 3 days, you want that frequency cap to really ramp up as it gets closer to that deadline. Yeah. How do you feel about Google Ads or Adwords to drive people to our site? I mean, short answer is it works. I mean, you have to, just like any channel, it's unlikely that you set it up first time and it just works out of the box. It takes somebody owning it, it takes somebody managing it, it takes somebody testing different keywords that you're targeting, it takes somebody testing the copy on your ads, it takes somebody testing the landing pages that you're sending those ads to. But of course it works, and it's a proven marketing channel. If you're just getting started, I would suggest starting small, both from the number of keywords that you're targeting, but also from the types of keywords that you're targeting. So in other words, don't try to run very top of funnel Google search campaigns, as well as like Google search campaigns that you're measuring by conversion at the same time. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's a different skill set. It's a different thing to optimize a Google campaign that's just focused on getting clicks and initial engagement versus a Google campaign that's intended to get clicks and conversions on the back end of those clicks. It's a different skill set, and you have more things that you have to test for the second example. Typically, I like to start bottom of funnel. So are there search keywords that are precise and targeted enough that the people who search those things and who in principle would be clicking my ads are very close to the point of purchase, or very close to the point of decision. So like, again, I'll go back to this example. Somebody searching like food event, right? Versus somebody searching, winter food expo in California. That second group of searchers is much more bottom of funnel. They know much more specifically what they're looking for, and they're probably more likely to buy. So if there's like sizable search volume for keywords that are of that category of being, very intent heavy and very close to the point of a decision, typically I like starting there because you can make an impact faster. But broadly, Google Ads is a proven channel, in almost every industry. That's the note there. Cool. James, anything else? Anything else that's come in?
Nothing that I've seen.
Oh man, I think we got through all of them.
Another one.
Is that right?
Just got another one.
Okay. Yeah, send that one over.
Christian just asked.
Cool. That's a question from Christian also?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. So for events we host, our registration software is hosted on a third-party server. Yeah, that's pretty common. This causes difficulty when trying to track conversions through house ads, Facebook ads, or basically any digital marketing effort. We're able to track website traffic. I'm assuming that's because your website is not hosted, with some kind of third party. We're able to track website traffic, but the analytics fall off once they've gone over to the third party to register. Have you encountered any issues or solutions with cross-domain tracking? Yeah, that's a big problem, but the good news is that it's also a pretty common problem. So I'll speak for Feathr specifically. We integrate with like almost all reg vendors, even with ones that have had, challenging systems to integrate our tracking tool and our tracking pixel with. We like reach out and work with them like we're part of the industry just like them, and we have mutual clients who would be benefited by us being able to work with them and having our tools talk to each other. So sometimes it takes some legwork, sometimes it takes, the marketing tool that you're using, if you can get in touch with somebody there who you can put in touch with a contact from your reg vendor in this case to figure out a way to make that tracking work. It's typically not that complex. Like in Feathr's case, it's just the tracking pixel from your account needs to be placed on each step, each page of the registration flow from your reg vendor. So it's typically not a complex integration. Sometimes there's some additional customization that has to be done. But in our case, we work like hand to hand with reg vendors to figure it out. And we have, with many of the leading reg vendors, we have like standing processes in place that both of our teams are trained on. So when, if you're using CompuSystems or if you're using Cvent or whatever reg vendor that you're using, there might be already a standing like integration policy that both of our teams have built together. And so it might be a really simple lift. In your case, if you're a customer, you might be working on this already with your customer success manager or with our implementation team, but it's something that we're really comfy doing. It usually can be pulled off. I think there's been very rare cases where it's just like not doable at all. So I'd encourage you to explore that a little bit and maybe have your reg vendor get in touch with your marketing vendor in some way. Yeah, so this is another question. In addition to this, would you say that being able to track conversions is vital to measure your marketing efforts? Yes, yes, for sure. It's better to do retargeting than to not do retargeting, as an example, whether you can track the impact of your retargeting efforts or not. But I'll say this, it's hard for you to know what's working and what's not working and to change what you're doing, obviously, if you can't see your performance. If it's between, hey, we're not doing retargeting now and we can start to do retargeting but not track conversions, or we can stay without doing retargeting, it's better to just launch the retargeting campaigns and figure out the tracking problem maybe at a later date. Because there are just some channels that you have to be on. And at this point, retargeting is one of those channels. It's just a must. It's a must for your marketing program, in my opinion. That being said, that's an important problem that should be worked through, is how to track those conversions, and not only to optimize what you're doing, but also to show the value of your work. I was talking with somebody on the team yesterday. It was being reiterated to me how important it is for our marketers, our customers, and marketers in general to show the value of their work. That's how people are increasingly being measured. That's how their value is being determined. That's what determines if they get promoted next year. And so it's super, super critical. Here's a question. What are your thoughts on geofencing single-day events that are only around 6 hours? We have a lot of industry-specific events, but they are shorter. But the audience that attends these events would be our target market. I would suggest testing it. I would suggest doing it. Yeah, launch the campaigns. You're not going to be spending that much, again, because these audiences tend to be relatively small. So you can pay for a high CPM. You can get a lot of impressions to these people in that short window when they're there. And it's very much worth testing. It's very much worth testing. With geofencing, if there's any event or physical location that draws and congregates your target audience, I would suggest mapping out those things like 3 to 6 months in advance and just pre-scheduling your geofencing campaigns. I'm going to run a geofencing campaign that's targeting this venue on these dates because I know there's a competitive event happening there. I'm going to target a geofencing, I'm going to target this venue on those dates because I know there's an adjacent event that draws some of my audience. I'm going to target, this college on this university campus with an offer for like young professionals in the industry because I know that's the medical college and I'm a medical association and I'm going to show students who are in the medical college ads, talking about the value to young professionals of joining my medical association. So like you can just plan it out and pre-schedule everything. It's very much worth testing. Cool. Maybe one of the last ones here because we're almost coming up on time, but what is the best way to retarget members on Facebook? So you can do it in a couple of ways. One, if you set up just a Facebook business page and a Facebook ad account, you can get a Facebook tracking pixel that you can put on your site. And in that way, Facebook will track your site visitors and allow you to retarget them. That's the simple way. If you're a Feathr customer, Feathr has a Facebook integration so that if you set up Feathr's tracking to do general retargeting, you can also use those tracked people to power Facebook retargeting campaigns. So if you're a Feathr customer, I suggest doing that because it just makes the integration process simpler. And then that way in one tool, you can have all of your retargeting campaigns running. You can have your display retargeting campaigns. You can have your Facebook retargeting campaigns all running in one place and see all of the metrics together. And it also makes the audience tracking and segmentation process simpler so that, if you're building a segment of your audience in Feathr, that's, again, everybody who's visited, say, like the membership section of your association website or your event page, you can create that segment once in Feathr, retarget them with general retargeting on Feathr, and then also retarget that same segment of people on Facebook with a Facebook retargeting campaign. So it just simplifies the process and makes it a little bit cleaner. Cool. All right. I think that's it. Unless there's any other last minute questions that we want to get to, we've got 4 minutes, and I intend to use all of it if we've got more questions. But in the meantime, I think you heard me mention, we have this live on Zoom, but we're also live on YouTube. In addition to going live on YouTube, which we intend to do more and more with shows like this, as maybe some other shows that we're considering doing that would make sense on YouTube. YouTube has become maybe our most frequently published to content platform in a while. We've got James right here. James, can you say hello?
Hello.
There's his hand. That's James's right hand right there. But he's joined the team to head up all of our videography. And so we've published 25-ish videos to our YouTube channel already. And that's everything from Q&As and overviews of Feathr's products into marketing content and marketing educational content. So I'd highly encourage everybody on this to check it out, check out some of the content we have there, subscribe to get future content. Really investing in video and YouTube specifically coming up over this next few months. So it looks like that's it. I want to go ahead and thank everybody so much for joining. An hour of your time. I know everybody, all of our customers, all of our audience are super strapped and usually have more on their plate than is realistic for them. So I Greatly appreciate the time. We're going to be doing this again. We're shooting for a pace of at least one a month. So be on the lookout. And if you've got more questions in between now and then, we would love to take them, and we'd love to see you again on the next episode of the Ask Feather Show. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Sherry. Cool. All right. See you, everybody.